well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam & Company. My name is Cam Edwards. Glad you're with me on the program today. Obviously, paying attention to the events of this weekend, the assassination attempt on President Donald Trump. Former President Donald Trump, maybe the next president, Donald Trump. You've got Democrats who are saying, oh, this did it. It's second term for Donald Trump after this. We're not going to talk about this in our interview today. We're going to be talking with the founder of Magen, but I think it is appropriate. I spoke with Rabbi Yossi last week before the assassination attempt on President Donald Trump. But, this is an organization that has been around for a few years. It is all about collective self-defense because the Jewish community has seen a rise in anti-Semitic attacks. They understand the need to protect and defend ourselves. And unfortunately, one of the things that we've seen in the aftermath of this assassination attempt is a real push by folks on the left, at least some folks on the left. And I want to be careful not to paint with too broad a brush here, because that is part of the problem that we have with our political rhetoric in this country, is that some of us do tend to paint, and maybe all of us at one point or another, tend to paint with too broad a brush. So let me be specific. The Southern Poverty Law Center is out there basically saying that gun ownership itself is a red flag for political violence. This was in USA Today. They talked about the assassin's father, who apparently made a purchase online of some kind back in 2020 at a firearm company. Then they pointed to a review that he left, I guess, last year about a reselling company. And that alone, and we know, by the way, according to law enforcement sources, that the gun that was used apparently was lawfully purchased by the assassin's father. That led the Southern Poverty Law Center to say that gun culture was in the home. And that is a red flag, they said, for this type of political violence. Now, again, there are tens of millions of Americans who, I guess, fall under that rubric of gun culture since they are gun owners. And the vast majority of those gun owners will never go on to commit a crime of any kind. But again, we are already seeing some anti-gun voices trying to tar and feather anybody and everybody who exercises their Second Amendment rights, accusing them of being a problem that needs to be solved, right? And the exercise of that inherent civil right is an evil that must be eradicated. Well, we are going to stand firm in support of our right to keep and bear arms, our ability to protect and defend ourselves and our loved ones. And we will cover the what is sure to be a renewed debate over the Second Amendment here in the days ahead. As I mentioned, we are going to be talking with the head of Magen today. Before we get to that, though, let's talk about this for just 1 second. Economists warned that massive tax hikes could devastate your IRA and 401k account as the stock market braces for impact. With inflation on the rise and global uncertainty looming, it is clear why central banks and savvy Americans are turning to gold. If you haven't had your eye on gold, it's time to make it a priority. Priority Gold. Trust their team of proven professionals to help you diversify your savings with gold and silver. Call 1-800-405-GOLD or visit PriorityGold.com/golden for a free gold info guide. Plus, see if you qualify for free shipping and storage. Experts agree that physical gold is one of the best ways to fortify your savings, no matter the economic climate. Act now to get your portfolio working for you while the market is golden. Call 1-800-405-GOLD to speak with a gold specialist or visit PriorityGold.com/golden to learn more. That's 1-800-405-GOLD. Now, as I mentioned, last week, this was, I believe, last Thursday, when I had the opportunity to sit down and talk with Rabbi Yossi, the founder of Magen, which is a group you may have heard about. I've read about this organization a couple of times at Bearing Arms. It's hard to describe. I mean, this is not just a self-defense group. This is not a firearms training group. This is, I think as the rabbi said, it's a nonprofit security firm. I mean, they offer everything from firearms training to armed security for synagogues and worship centers. Starting out in Southern California, but the rabbi says that they've got plans to expand across the country. And, at a time in which, again, I think a lot of us are concerned about the prospect of political violence, not just against politicians and candidates, but against us for our beliefs. Groups like Magen are understandably seeing a lot of growth and a lot of support. So if you want to learn more about this organization, take a look and listen. Rabbi, thanks so much for coming on the program. It is really good to meet you, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So first question, we'll just start with an easy one. What is Magen, and what was the purpose behind starting this organization?
Well, Magen, it translates as our nation's shield. And if you look at Jewish history, it seems obvious that we need people who can stand up and protect ourselves. I think every community having a body, having a shield, feeling secure means that they're less likely to need to fight in the first place. And so we started back in 2017, and it was just training in the beginning, like let's teach people to be more prepared, better prepared to defend themselves from different threats, whether it's firearms, lethal, or just combatives, or de-escalation, situational awareness, the whole gamut. And it grew into what it is today, which is the first nonprofit licensed security agency. So physical armed security teams providing security for houses of worship, community events, patrol and response, schools, kind of like a holistic security. Like we're calling it a protection agency now instead of a security company, because people think security company and they think the wrong thing. And yes, we have that license, but we do a lot more than that. It's changing the culture of a community.
And let's kind of delve into that a little bit, because again, the way you describe this nonprofit protection agency, who are those protection agents? I mean, it sounds like it is the community itself, right?
The community itself. So we have our primary program is taking members of the community, putting them through the training, the licensing, all of that, providing the insurance. So totally legal, above board. Every politician understands what a security company is. So that makes that simple, but it's their family, it's their home. They might be the CEO of a company and their hourly rate would be, $1,000 an hour, but because it's their family, they're going to do security for them, right? They're going to fill this need for their community. We also have professional guards, guys who this is their day in, day out job, because you need full-time coverage at a school, and it's hard to do that with volunteers. So we also have that professional staff, and we provide them with, I would say, above industry standard training, because training is such a part of our company culture, organization's culture. So there are all these opportunities for these guys to take training, and we're looking for the people who want to grow.
What has been the response, and has the response from the community changed over the years? I imagine that October 7th was a wake-up call for some folks, and before that, they might have thought, "Well, what's the need? We don't need this. This is just overkill."
100%, 100%. It's definitely everything you start is difficult. So it was hard in the beginning, very, very foreign to a lot of people. And over time, it really has grown into now to the point that it's a popular thing. It's a respected thing within the community, which is a huge blessing. It's sad, but it's a huge blessing. And definitely post October 7th, we have been doing firearms training, talking to people about offering the classes, but talking to people about the process and things like that for years already. But after October 7th, the demand was so high that I put on 8 lectures on responsible firearm ownership. We had over 1,200 people in those 8 lectures, and 40% of each of them. One of the questions I asked, just to get a gauge of the room, is how many of you never planned on owning a gun, never wanted to own a gun? And 40% in each of average 40% in each of those 8 classes raised their hand that they never thought they would do it, and now they felt like they needed to, which again is a sad state of affairs.
Yeah,
but it's the reality.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, on the one hand, I'm glad to see that people are embracing their right to self-defense, but it is, it's terrible that they're doing so because they feel threatened. They feel that need to protect themselves and their families for the first time in their lives. And, Magen, I know that you're sort of based in Southern California, right? You've got some training in Arizona. But I also have to ask, I mean, how much of an eye-opening experience has this been for these new gun owners to all of a sudden have to deal with all of California's restrictions on being a gun owner and exercising your Second Amendment rights?
It's definitely an interesting place to start this. California is not it's not known for its gun culture. Um, it's been challenging. I mean, in class Sunday we had a class. I was actually in just outside of Chicago doing a class there. We're working on expansion. But on Sunday we had a class here locally at our Orange County chapter, and one of the guys is a lefty and he's struggling with a Gen 3 Glock and like, how do I change magazines? And I'm trying to send him a video of like, well, here's how you do that. And you can't buy a Gen 5 Glock, right? You can't get that ambi mag release, and that sucks because like left-handed people are people too. So
as a lefty, yes, thank you. I feel recognized.
We tease. I think the term is ableist in California, but like the government is trying to be so open and welcoming, but then also they're making things so difficult for a whole piece of our society.
Absolutely. In particular, I'm thinking about the folks who want to be able to carry a firearm, which, in Orange County, that was fairly easy to do. Los Angeles County, not so much, right? I mean, a lot of Southern California, particularly before Bruin, when the May issue laws were in place, it was nearly impossible to get a concealed carry license. Theoretically, now it's possible, but depending on where you live, you could be waiting 9 months, 10 months, a year or more.
2 years.
For you?
Mine
or you know people who've been waiting for 2 years?
Mine was about 18 months. My wife has been waiting for 2 years.
Wow.
So, and it's just the demand, right? When you have no system, no way to process these applications, and then the floodgates open and you assign a unit of 7 people and there are tens of thousands of applications, it's going to take a long time.
Yeah.
So, it's been, yeah.
I don't know if you've talked with the folks of the California Rifle and Pistol Association, but they're suing the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, and sounds like you and your wife would be great plaintiffs for that case.
Rick is a friend, Rick Travis.
Okay. Oh, good. That is, I mean, and again, you're right that you get that floodgates open, and there's that surge in demand. But at the same time, if the government says these are the steps that you have to follow in order for you to get a concealed carry license, the government has to do its job to ensure that those licenses are being processed in a timely manner. It is. I mean, I think it's absolutely an egregious violation of our fundamental rights to wait for 2 years for a permission slip so you can bear arms in self-defense, particularly again when we are seeing this rise in anti-Semitic attacks, right? We know that these things are happening more frequently. We know that tensions are rising. It's not just a desire. I think there is a need to be able to exercise these rights. And in California, unfortunately, I think the government is getting in the way.
Without going too far down the rabbit hole, I have this philosophy about government and private sector and how we should be working together and where the challenges are. I agree with you. This is something that I think we need to do. And one of my general operating philosophies, core values is we try to remain positive. And when, after the protests a couple of weeks ago, I sat in a debrief with the mayor and chief of police, and I recognize that if I sit and I tell the police, this is why you messed up, right? Here are the mistakes you made, it's not going to help my cause. So instead it's, hey, here's the challenge we're both facing. How can we work together to overcome this challenge?
Yeah.
So I try not to complain at people because I just haven't found it to be effective. And instead it's what can we do about it as private citizens, as members of this city? What can we do to make it work better? And my this might sound like a hippie hunch, but my gut is that if we really work on helping the problem instead of yelling about the problem, we'll probably get more done.
How
you need a lawsuit to make that happen?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, so what does that help look like, you think, in terms of this particular issue?
So in terms of the licensing issue, I mean, I would imagine that there are people out there with an incredible skill set at making systems more efficient, right? And if they could work with the sheriff's office on how to make this system more efficient, right? There are private investigators who do background checks on people, right? Well, hey, this is how we do it. It really works well. You should look like now I know they're looking into Prometheum, which I think will really accelerate this process. If there were people in the way beginning saying like, hey, like I know a guy from Prometheum, let me help get you guys set up faster. Things like that. Again, hippie hunching. It might not work. It might not be true. It just in my rabbi hat, it feels better to do that than to yell at people.
Well, listen, the good news is that we don't have to adopt one strategy, right? So you can try to go the helpful route, and here, let us help you do your job better. And other groups like the CRPA can take the litigation route of you need to do your job better, or there are going to be legal consequences for that. And maybe in the middle, we can get something done here. But getting back to Magen, I was struck. I ran across a story a couple of weeks ago from the Jewish Journal talking about a new movie, Guns and Moses, which sounds absolutely fantastic. Salvador and Nina Litvak put this movie together, and they have both undergone Magen training. And they talked about this with the Jewish Journal and how they incorporated this training in the movie itself. So there's this, a great montage of a rabbi who's undergoing firearm training, but he doesn't turn out to be John Wick in 30 seconds, right? He doesn't become Neo in the Matrix. He is still very much a new gun owner, which I thought was such a great perspective and something you don't really see in Hollywood. And I love the fact, and I'm not sure if it's because this couple actually went through your training that they decided, you know what, let's have a little bit more realistic look at this. But I've got to think that when you are starting to see stuff like this show up in pop culture, that this does indicate maybe an acceptance or an embrace of the right to keep and bear arms within the Jewish community. Do you think that's the case?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Jewish community is all the way across the spectrum, right? You got your people all the way on one side, you got your people all the way on the other. But so Nina hasn't been through our training, but has been through our training. He's one of our team members, and it was a very fun project. I had Mark, the main actor, I had him at the range with me, just like, hey, when you train in the movie, like if when you're starting, hold the gun like this, it'll show a poor grip. And beginner students, when you're further on, make sure you're gripping it high and tight. Like we went through a lot of that. I made him change the script and like, listen, when he gets into the real gunfights, make sure he has a red dot because otherwise he's not going to hit his target, right? Like we made some of these simple suggestions that was, it was a fun project. Like you mentioned, it's pop culture, so it's nice to see um, Orthodox Jews portrayed in a certain way in films, which is almost never the case. And for me, it's like maybe I'm out of the box for an Orthodox Jew, but when I watch Orthodox Jews on TV, I'm like that doesn't look like me. Um, so so it was definitely a refreshing break.
That's fantastic. And I hope that it's just, I hope we see more of this in culture. And it sounds like with the organization expanding, you mentioned you were in the Chicago area. Do you have chapters? I mean, how does this work? If folks want to bring Maganam to their community, is that a possibility? How do they do that?
So we have someone here now from North Texas who's helping us develop our expansion manual.
Okay.
Our problem is we're too small of an organization doing too much. So my main job these days is actually fundraising, because it's, unfortunately it comes down to resources and you got to hire a director and hire a trainer and build out the program, the licensing, the corporate docs, all of that. But we're probably less than 6 months away from opening the first couple chapters. Which I mean, Arizona, Phoenix is the first one, but that's in Jewish law, the firstborn gets a double inheritance, right? And we say it's because the firstborn is where you make all your mistakes, right? So we're working. I love Ian is our Arizona director. He's an awesome dude, but the poor guy has to put up with way too much garbage from me. Um, but we're very close to North Texas. We're speaking to people in Nashville and in Denver, in Atlanta, in Miami. So really trying to move this forward.
That is fantastic. And I would love to, continue this conversation and talk about Magen as it is growing around the country. But, what is your message for somebody who says, Rabbi, this is all fine and good. But, we need a different route, right? It's not, we're only going to escalate the violence if we arm up. We're only going to make things worse. We need to be de-escalating things, and adding guns to the mix just, adds to the tensions. What would your response to that be? And do you hear stuff like that?
I hear it all the time. And I'm a big teacher of de-escalation. Right? I've been in a number during the BLM riots right here in my neighborhood. We stopped 12 home invasions in 72 hours with zero use of force. Um, so, I think you need to be proficient with the tools so that you are prepared to deal with the problems that these tools deal with. And if you are proficient and if you are training and you're also not approaching this because you like violence, you're approaching this because you love your community, then you'll find ways to de-escalate when possible. I got a call from one of our guards 2 blocks from where I'm sitting, where he called in a young black male was walking by and said, "I'm a Crip and I'm going to take your gun and, make it a problem." And I was there, showed up almost exactly like this in my suit. I'm CCW, but he doesn't necessarily know that. And 15 minutes later, I took a selfie with the guy and he followed us on social media, right? Like we don't need to get into fights if we don't need to get into fights. And that's, so I agree. Let's de-escalate. Let's not fight when we don't have to fight. And also part of why I can do that is because I know if it comes to fighting, like I'll win. So I don't need a fight. And that's there are so many people who carry guns and it's all about the gun. And it's like, no, like, let's work your hand to hand. Like I was a sponsored MMA fighter, right? I'm a licensed law enforcement Krav Maga instructor. Let's work the combative side. Let's work the de-escalation side. Let's work the verbal judo side. Like let's talk about why fighting isn't necessary unless it is, right? The way I say it is if somebody ends up dead trying to kill me or my loved ones, that's on them, right? But if I can keep them alive, I'm going to keep them alive. So training is important and getting a full picture. I do a lecture on like the psychology of all of this, right? I'm a trauma counselor too, right? I understand that fighting isn't the natural thing for a lot of people. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out why exactly there's a certain way of doing things, and predators don't hunt for predators. So just don't make yourself look like prey, and you probably won't be prey.
Yeah. And you have a lot of hats, Rabbi. That I could talk to you for hours just about. We need a biography. That should be the Liptak's next movie. Is your biography on the silver screen? Excuse me.
I was actually the original concept art for that movie.
Was it really?
There was a silhouette of me at the range. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Fun.
Well, I hope that we can see your story brought to the big screen someday. I always like to ask this question of folks. Did you grow up around guns? I mean, how did you get involved in the Second Amendment? Has this always just been a part of your life?
Since my bar mitzvah, when I turned 13, the assistant rabbi working for my father was a Krav Maga instructor. So he, was into this stuff. My father is not a fan of guns. Like he's not against them. He just like, he doesn't like noise. And my mom is all about it. My mom was like, she wanted a Beretta 92 FS for her birthday. She's that type of person. And so it wasn't like we were steeped in it. But we also were not hidden from it. My parents also have a unique, a very unique backstory. So my father's a Chabad rabbi too, but he didn't grow up Orthodox. So in his family, guns are almost taboo. My mom, my mom grew up, single parent home and like on the streets of New York, like fighting back with people. So just she's a fighter. And my father is very much a believer in like not backing down and standing up for what's right. So between the two of them, it was something we spoke about, something we did maybe once a year. Um, and I just knew growing up, like it was something I wanted to be more involved in.
That's fantastic. Listen, Rabbi, again, I really appreciate you spending some time with me today. I would love to have you back in the future. I really appreciate you getting up bright and early to do this interview. And maybe next time we can do it a little bit later for you. But if folks want more information about Magen, how do they find you all online?
Magenam.com, Magenam.com. We got social media, hopefully they can find us.
I think so.
If you search rabbis and guns, we might pop up.
Sounds good. Rabbi, again, thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to talking again very soon.
Likewise. Thank you. Be well.
My thanks to Rabbi Yossi Yofer for joining us on the program. Looking forward to talking with him again in the future. And, again, at this point in time, it is completely understandable that people want to be able to protect themselves. I do believe that we need to find a way to look at each other as our fellow Americans rather than our blood enemies. But that doesn't happen overnight. Even if we are able to de-escalate the political tensions in this country, that is a long-term project. And in the meantime, people have every right to protect themselves and their loved ones from those who would do them harm. All right, before we get to today's Armed Citizen story, our good deed of the day, and our recidivist report, let's talk about this for just 1 second here. At the very heart of our democracy lies a principle that we hold sacred: free speech, right? It is the cornerstone that supports every freedom we cherish. But in today's digital age, discussions about our wealth, our rights, and our future are being silenced or overshadowed in mainstream narratives, leaving many folks feeling voiceless in conversations that are crucial to our financial independence and security. This is where Wealth Protection Research steps in, armed with a mission that's never been more critical. Wealth Protection Research is not a financial advisory firm. They're defenders of free speech, committed to giving a voice to the silenced. Wealth Protection Research tirelessly seeks out financial experts, the voices that challenge prevailing narratives, especially as we navigate the uncertainties of the 2024 election. And they've created a 2024 Election Wealth Protection Report, which highlights the 3 best ideas for protecting and growing your money heading into the 2024 election. It contains ideas the mainstream media won't touch, and listeners can get it completely free by texting IDEAS to 76626 to claim your free copy. If you believe in the sanctity of free speech and the importance of financial freedom, then act now. Text the word IDEAS to 76626 to claim your free copy of this 2024 Election Protection Report. It's time to widen the scope of what we're told, to hear the ideas the establishment doesn't think you can handle, and to take control of our financial destinies. Text IDEAS to 76626 to claim your free copy. All right, now on to today's Armed Citizen story, our good deed of the day, and our recidivist report. We'll start there with a incident out of Milwaukee where the RNC kicks off later tonight. There's been a lot of talk in the city council about the need for more gun control laws in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, moves that went nowhere because of the state's fire and preemption law. But while these common council members are busy bemoaning the fact that, yes, the Second Amendment still exists, maybe they should pay more attention to what's going on in the criminal justice system. Here's the headline: Milwaukee shooting at liquor store, 21-year-old man accused. Now, the headline itself doesn't explain or really detail the criminal history of this 21-year-old, Lonnie Shepard Jr. In fact, what we know is that Shepard Jr. has now been charged with first-degree reckless injury, robbery by use of force, and possession of a firearm by a felon. 3 counts of possession of a firearm by a felon. Now, we don't know what felony this 21-year-old has been convicted of or pleaded guilty to. All we know at this point, thanks to the reporting from Fox 6 in Milwaukee, is that young Mr. Shepard was out and about rather than behind bars after receiving a felony conviction. Again, he's only 21 years old right now. So what happened that put Mr. Shepard back out on the streets? It was July the 5th. Police responded to a shots fired incident. They located a 19-year-old who was suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. He said he was walking with 2 people to a liquor store. Don't know why a 19-year-old was walking to a liquor store, but whatever. Said he was carrying his firearm under his left armpit. Victim said that when he got into the store, again, not sure why the 19-year-old was going into a liquor store, he noticed the defendant, Mr. Shepard, The victim stated that he could tell that the suspect wanted his gun. The victim stated he approached the counter. The defendant and the second subject then started shooting at him inside the store. Surveillance video, according to Fox 6, shows the victim and two others walk into the liquor store to purchase liquor. Moments later, two suspects, including the defendant, enter the store. Complaint goes on to say suspect 1 has his right hand on a gun in his own waistband. Suspect 1 grabs for the victim's gun, located in the victim's front waistband. Suspect 2 standing behind both the victim and suspect 1. The victim then pulled away, backed away from suspect 1. Suspect 2 then pointed a gun at the victim and appeared to fire one gunshot at the victim's chest. Suspect 2 then drew his firearm, I believe that was suspect 1, and shoots at the victim. Both suspects then continued to shoot at the victim. Eventually, suspect 1 runs up to the victim, takes his gun. Suspect 2 then runs to assist suspect 1 and falls to the ground, hitting his head hard on the ground before both suspects then fled the store. They eventually learned that the suspects had arrived in a black Mercury Milan with a temporary license plate. They found the vehicle 2 days later when they stopped the car. Lonnie Shepard was in the front passenger seat. Inside, they recovered a 9mm handgun, as well as unfired rounds. When they conducted a warranted check for Shepard, it revealed that he had a, quote, active warrant for violation of his probation. He was also out on electronic monitoring at the time, which apparently didn't do a damn thing. When police conducted an interview with Shepard, they asked if DNA was going to come back in the gun. He said, yeah, because he touched it, but it didn't belong to him. He said that the suspect vehicle, though, was his vehicle. Cash bond has been set at just $30,000 for Mr. Shepard in this latest shooting. And again, I think we need to be asking the question, what was Lonnie Shepard convicted of or pleaded guilty to earlier? And why was he not behind bars for that previous crime rather than being out on the street at the tender age of 21? All right, on to today's armed citizen story from St. Louis, Missouri, where a resident shot a burglar. This was, I believe, a late Sunday night, early Monday morning. Actually, it was early Sunday morning, about 5 o'clock in the morning. Police say the 30-year-old resident shot a 21-year-old who broke into his home, or at least shot at a 21-year-old who broke into the man's home. The suspect ran out the home's back door. And yes, as it turns out, I guess he was hit. Police found the suspect a short distance away with a, quote, bullet-related injury. He was arrested, taken to a local hospital for treatment. No word on his condition. Police say this is an ongoing investigation, but based on the limited information we have at the moment, an intruder breaks into somebody's home. That individual does have the right to protect themselves. Someone in your house at 5 o'clock in the morning, not there to sell you Amway or anything like that. So we will keep our eyes open for any more updates, but this does appear to be a justified use of force there in St. Louis, Missouri. And finally today, our good deed of the day, in the right place, at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. In Washington State, a group of neighbors who came to the aid of some young kids who were home alone when their house caught fire. Now, we covered a similar story about, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. Not the same story. This is a completely different incident, completely different people, completely different state, I believe. This was in Mount Vernon, Washington. It was back on June the 3rd at the Skagit Valley Mobile Manor when the fire broke out. 8-year-old Archibaldo was home with his sisters when a fire from originally outside of the home started creeping closer and closer to the building. He said we heard popping things outside, and then the fire started outside right by the front door, and then like smoke was coming inside of our house. He said he quickly realized that it was too late to escape out the front door. He said, I had told my sister to get in the room so we can be safe to ask someone for help. As the home is filling up with smoke, neighbors saw the kids banging on a front window, and they realized, oh, God, there are children inside. So they sprung into action. Aurelio Ortiz, who is Archibaldo's dad, says they came and they broke the window. They took the kids out, basically through that front window before the flames engulfed everything. The home is a total loss. Aurelio Ortiz says, all the stuff, nothing saved, everything cleared. He says, I have to start from zero. But he says, these things are easy to burn. It's so hot, the mattress, the frame, everything. He said it took less than 4 minutes. But he is grateful that while his belongings may have been destroyed, his family is still intact. He said, everything's material, everything we can fix, we can restart. But the important thing is my kids. He says it'll take about a year for them to rebuild their home. But again, The family is safe and sound thanks to the quick thinking and fast actions of the neighbors there at the Skagit Valley Mobile Manor in Mount Vernon, Washington, in the right place at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. And we thank them for their very, very good deed. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company. I want to thank you, as always, for being a part of the program. I would encourage you to check out bearingarms.com throughout the day. We are covering the latest news and information on the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. You got the RNC starting in Milwaukee. You got gun control activists losing their minds. What is new there, I suppose. And we will be covering it all for you. Again, at bearingarms.com. If you like what you see, I'd also encourage you to become a VIP or VIP Gold member. Just use the promo code SAVEAMERICA. You can get a significant savings on your VIP or VIP Gold membership. You'll get exclusive content. You'll get an ad-free experience. You'll get the ability to comment on stories. And you'll also be supporting the independent pro-Second Amendment journalism that we're doing at Bearing Arms. And in this day and age of anti-gun media bias, rampant big tech censorship, that support is more important than ever. So thank you. Thank you for your support. We'll see you back here tomorrow for 2A Tuesday. Until then, be well, be safe, and be free.